we ended up with an individual who spent his entire life following his passion to create artwork that he felt the world would recognize and would be appreciated. And no reason not to, because during his life, there was 70 or 80 museums that basically acquired his work for their permanent collections. So this wasn't some foolish journey. It was people had recognized that the quality work were museum quality, and they were being acquired during his lifetime. Unfortunately, upon his death, whether there's a change in the times, whether there's change in the funding of museums, whatever. But my father had gone from someone that basically had great aspirations to be remembered as an artist. I don't want to say famous. I don't want to say renowned. I don't want to say a fellow that made a lot of money or sold a lot of pictures. He just wanted to be recognized as an artist. And somewhere along the line, it got disjointed. Clearly, he has the talent. He had the passion. But something occurred in the art world that basically left him pretty much in 2014 completely unknown with 4,000 plus pieces of work. The majority of that dedicated to go to museums, unwanted.
Welcome to the Famous or Forgotten podcast, the making or missing of great artists.
Welcome to Famous or Foolish. This is the first episode of our podcast. Sean and I both run podcasts. I run the Masters Marketing Agency podcast, where I learn from marketing owners what moves the needle and how brands hit critical mass. And my personal journey was after acquiring some work, some art pieces from Reid Bechtle. I started to wonder, do the same concepts of marketing apply to the world of fine art? Now, here's an artist who sparked the mid-century abstract movement in Philadelphia, ran with all the greats of the era, and whose work seems to hit all of the right stare at this for hours points. I mean, you can see it behind me. It's in more museums than his contemporaries, but by most accounts, his work is completely in obscurity. We know that great products need great marketing to be successful. Does the same apply to art? Sean and I started the Famous or Foolish podcast to explore the making and missing of iconic artists, to find out what does it take to make it in the art world. And on our first episode, we have Reid Bechtle, son of Reid Bechtle, tell us about his journey with his father's work and give us some insights that he's experienced throughout the journey. Welcome, Reid. Thanks for being on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Alex.
So, Reid, tell us from your standpoint, what's been your experience with your father's work?
Well, it's quite interesting. My father is was an artist, which means he was a little, I guess you would describe unusual, introverted. Sometimes people would say a bit off balance, but an individual that his entire life was revolved around artwork. And even though he did hold a job which provided him a very good livelihood, his focus was always on art. If you got together with my father, he'd rarely talk about what he did for a living, but he would always take you into the studio to show you his latest piece of artwork. I was never an artist. Okay. I can't claim I understand my father's artwork whatsoever. So as we all know, fathers and sons always bear an unusual relationship to begin with, unlike fathers and mothers, who seem to be a natural love. We as sons always seem to have to earn the respect of our fathers one way or another. And I really never understood the work he did on the art side. I understood the business side. But so basically that led for very short conversations about the artwork. I always liked it. He always felt comfortable that I appreciated it because he provided me works throughout his career, would send them down, would inscribe them to me. But I never quite understood. And in my younger days, I just really didn't pay attention of what he was doing. But he died in 2014. He was born in 1924, lived for 90 years. The last 6 or 7 years, he suffered from memory issues, which basically had him institutionalized. So basically, his painting career went from probably the early 1930s through 2004, 2005. And we saw a change in his work over the years. But fundamentally, what took place was when he passed away in 2014, obviously the estate process started. And as any smart father would do, he made the executors of the estate people that did not reside in the family. So something that I have taken from him. But so we had 2 executors. They were family friends. One was an attorney, and it was a standard. Yeah, there was a house here, and there was furniture and all this, and I figured this is great. Probably 50, 60 pieces of artwork. We'll split it up among the family, and come to find out that there was probably 4,000 pieces of artwork when you brought them all to bear. Probably 700 major pieces and thousands of what I would call minor pieces, smaller works that were contained in sketchbooks, etc. And it was I just kind of fell backwards. And, but I didn't think it was going to be an issue because in the reading of the will, my father had stipulated that the bulk of this work was going to be donated to museums. And then the executors began their crusade of stepping out, sending letters to 100 museums, 150 museums saying, we have your gift. Okay, we have your gift. Well, 150 letters went out, 150 come back. We love it. Don't want your gift. And so here we sit. We have my father who basically, and there's a lot of backstory to this, but Alex, I'm just trying to say how we got to where we are at this point. So all of a sudden we went up with the executives contacting me, the eldest child, and saying, okay, now what? And there were probably 200 works that were allocated by my father to the family. Okay. And we would choose those in a round robin event, which we did. And some of those pieces obviously are the pieces that you're familiar with, because when you were down, I gave you the package that went to my sister, which you took back, you looked at it, and that's what started this whole discussion. Mm-hmm. And God forbid we drag Sean in, who's a great addition. But fundamentally, we ended up with an individual who spent his entire life following his passion to create artwork that he felt the world would recognize and would be appreciated. And no reason not to, because during his life, there was 70 or 80 museums that basically acquired his work for their permanent collections. So this wasn't some foolish journey. It was people had recognized that the quality of work were museum quality, and they were being acquired during his lifetime. Unfortunately, upon his death, was there change in the times? Whether it's change in the funding of museums, whatever. But my father had gone from someone that basically had great aspirations to be remembered as an artist. I don't want to say famous. I don't want to say renowned. I don't want to say a fellow that made a lot of money or sold a lot of pictures. He just wanted to be recognized as an artist. And somewhere along the line, it got disjointed. Clearly, he has the talent. He had the passion. But something occurred in the art world that basically left him pretty much in 2014 completely unknown, with 4,000 plus pieces of work. The majority of that dedicated to go to museums, unwanted. And where does it reside now? To protect it, I ended up buying it from the estate. Okay, again, it wasn't destined for me. We had some that was given to myself and other family members, but for the most part, the rest of it was to be auctioned off. Okay. And again, if you can't give it away for free, my concern was, so what happens to all this stuff? So basically, I suggested that the executor's estate put it up for auction. Obviously, there wasn't too many bidders. And I acquired basically the entire estate. And that came and resides in my home today. So that's what's kind of gotten us here. And this podcast, which I think is fantastic, because what my father has gone through here, there's probably hundreds of other artists that have gone down the same path. You ask the question every day. So when you take a look at, Jackson Pollock and you look at C.R. Bechtle, same time frame, different cities, different types of art, size-wise and median. But for the most part, these people all hung out together. My father was in New York, him, Sam Feinstein, all these folks got together. But here we are with a Jackson Pollock you can't touch for probably less than $25 million and a C.R. Bechtle I can't give away.
So what have you done now that you acquired this work? Have you tried to promote it? I mean, this is, we're exploring the fact of, is there marketing involved, or in the research that you've done, have you seen others take their artwork and promote it, whereas maybe their family members promoted it? Tell us more about what you're doing with it now, what you've seen so far.
Well, Alex, it's actually quite interesting, because the first thing you have to do is I found it very quickly that this individual, this father who was an engineer by training, basically was the most disorganized artist on the face of the earth. So I acquired a bunch of stuff, in boxes. I assume, well, there's got to be a list. There's got to be some order. No order whatsoever. Nothing's numbered. Nothing's in order. I got some stuff that's titled. So step one was, if I'm going to do anything, I gotta put it in some semblance of order. So I spent a year just collecting the works, segregating them by size, segregating them by what he titled them or how he numbered them, creating a catalog system, photographing every piece. And basically, so right now, the first step was I have a complete catalog of at least what I have. And then all of a sudden, things start popping up in the woodwork, which is, I came across a set of slides and it says, this person has this painting. Well, I've never seen this painting. So what I've tried to do, I converted the slide to basically a catalog item. So I'm trying to capture every piece, whether I have it or I don't have it, to see what the scope of the work is. I had then gone back and basically identified the probably close to 90 museums that held his work, and actually identified all the pieces they hold. So you also have a separate file that contains all the museums, the work that they hold. So basically, there's a simple step: just get the stuff organized, and then fundamentally, I began to reach out. I began to reach out to individual museums. I knew the executors had done this before, but that was by letter and they sent it out. And there really wasn't much except here. Let me show you a few pictures, because my father designated specific pictures for specific museums. And I took a little different approach. I would go to the museums that he had typically identified on his list. And now I had a catalog. So I could send them 50, 60, 100, 1,000 images of paintings, and I'm saying, these are available. What would you like? Out of every 100 museums I would contact, and we'll use that for number, 70 I never heard back from. I'd never heard back from them. I sent them a very nice email, followed up typically by a letter, who I am. Out of the 25 I would talk to, very nice people. And it was and in most cases was, we're just not accepting any artwork at this particular point in time. We don't have a place to put it. We don't have a place to keep it. In fact, most museums I found were in the process of moving our work out. Basically, and what does that mean? Well, a lot of the artwork you see at auction houses these days is being put there by museums. They basically take it out of the collections, put it up, and take the funding to help operate the museums. Interestingly enough, in several cases, in at least 7 or 8 at this point, the museums never heard of my father. And when they saw the work, and again, I must say also at this time, I created a webpage. I was trying to do everything that would make it easy because my father made it very difficult. Not only had people not heard of him, but there was no way to show them his things. So now I have the galleries that I could send. I have the webpage, which is an introduction. And basically, please include it in your show notes. So if people have an interest,
we're going to link it up.
Perfect. They can go to that. But I found that either people basically didn't have an interest, either because they didn't have the resources or they just didn't have an interest, or they were highly interested. It was like yes or no, black or white. And museums like the Addison, the Farnsworth, the Woodmere, basically just welcomed with open arms. They couldn't wait to get pieces of his work in their collections. And you may say the Woodmere, you can understand. It's a Philadelphia-based museum focused on Philadelphia artists, high interest in, mid-century post-war artists. So that was natural. But if you take a look at the Addison, museum in Massachusetts, I mean, they have a collection that's unbelievable in terms of Andrew Wyeth's of the world, the Winslow Homers. And then all of a sudden they say, God, this stuff is great. Where's it been? And so we placed 3 or 4 pieces there. Following back up with museums like the Bates Museum, attached to Bates College, they took some additional pieces. And it was just great to talk to a lot of these people that said they hadn't heard of my father for years. The website, I got calls from some individuals that one individual was in Kansas, and she was a woman. She called, she said, hey, I have one of your dad's pieces. Do you want it back? I said, how did you get it? She said, well, it was given to the University of Wichita or the University of Kansas. And again, they didn't have a place for it over the years. So they basically gifted it to her, a longtime employee, and she had it hanging in her living room. I said, absolutely not. Keep it. And, but that came about just because she stumbled over the webpage, because if you take a look, there's no Wikipedia page for C.R. Bechtle. If you searched on C.R. Bechtle before, you found 0, absolutely 0. And again, here's an artist that basically was he started the Philadelphia Abstract Artists Group. He was a part of Group 55. He was recognized mid-century in Philadelphia. He basically, I guess he drank beer and had cocktails with, Jackson Pollock in New York. And here we are in 2023, and he's unknown, completely unknown, unbiased. Okay. And I'm biased by the fact that he was my father, and I truly like his work. It doesn't mean I understand it, but his use of colors is just attractive. My wife, she says, I can't stand it. And she goes back to when he was in his realist period, when he was younger. And she loves his oil, street corners, basically scenes of people. She loves him, absolutely loves him. But then she said, well, what happened to him? Why he all of a sudden went abstract? And it was like a switch went off. One day he was a realist, the next day he's doing abstracts. And it's very interesting. And, there's a lot of, as with most artists, there's things that you wonder about psychological demeanor. There was trauma in the families and everything else. So it's almost, I think, a requirement of artists to have some type of mess and trauma going on at all times to be able to create work. But if we just take a look at Group 55, there was a great exhibition done 2020, 2021 at the Woodmere Museum in Philadelphia, highlighting basically predominantly Sam Weinstein, because it was funded by his wife, Patricia Stark Weinstein, and the rest of the group of Group 55 artists, and very talented people. And interestingly enough, probably out of that group, my father has more pieces in museums than probably the rest of them do put together. Okay. Sam Weinstein, phenomenal guy, great works, oils, and again, big format oils. Once again, we have the same issue there. He's in obscurity. And again, is it because they're choosing? Is it because art is truly a business? And at the end of the day, maybe doesn't have a lot to do with the works itself, but with the marketing? I don't know. And I think that one of the things I know we have spoken about that really sparked my interest was this kind of the rise of the phoenix of Lynn Drexler. Same era as my father, female artist. They both resided in their later years in Maine. They knew each other. They crossed paths. I guess they commiserated together. I mean, Lynn at one point was, drawing and painting for tourists just to generate enough food, or just to generate enough money to, I guess, pay the rent and put food on the table. And she had passed away. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she's at auction, selling for millions out of nowhere.
How does that happen?
Yeah. When you take a look at museums and past history, I believe, I can't say for sure, but I believe by a long shot, my father probably had more pieces that were parts of permanent collections in museums than Lynn had. And whatever. But I talked to galleries, and, again, just adding on to your question, and said, look, I have my father, boom, boom, boom. Well, we're really not interested. Well, and the reasons became why not. Okay. My father was primarily a watercolor artist. So again, in a lot of cases, the watercolors don't get as much attention as oil paintings. His formats were a bit smaller. His largest pieces were about 24 by 36. And, a lot of the bigger known artists paint large format, 4 feet by 6 feet, these gigantic oils. But Sam Weinstein did that also. And the other issue is, the fact that he's dead, and right now there seems to be a bias towards young, unique, living artists. And again, it's not a bias, but basically what's popular now. And again, I was told this by galleries saying, look, if they're young, they're female, they're a little quirky, potentially minority based, that's what seems to be selling today. And that's not a reflection or basically anything on my behalf. It's just what the galleries told me. That's who we're representing. And to them, they were clear. This is a business. We have to be able to bring people in, and we have to be able to market their work. We bring them in, we represent them, we invest a lot of money in them, and the only way we make out is if, in fact, we sell their pieces. And their average piece, I think the average gallery probably gets between 35 and 50% of whatever the final sale price is on a piece of artwork. But, and again, please note, that's not a reflection on the individuals. It's just a reflection on, is art truly based on the quality of the works, which I think my father truly believed, or is it based on the ability to market the artists, where the work actually potentially becomes secondary? And I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. Or has it changed from 1965 to 2023? I really don't know. And the number of people that I ask, whether they be galleries, museums, curators, nobody seems to be able to tell me, which is why I'm really pleased that you're kind of undertaking this, because I think if you could even get close to an answer, it would be helpful to a lot of people, because they're either going to become famous or they're truly very foolish. One or the other.
Well, that speaks true directly to our show. And we're going to be talking to artists, family members of the artists, different museums, auction houses, galleries, investors, curators. I mean, we're going to run the gamut, because it's a mystery. And everywhere I've looked, just as you said, Reid, no one's really cracked it. No one's said, yes, it's this, or it's that, or in this case, the talent matters, or in this case, the marketing matters.
Right.
So we're going to try to peel back the onion and find out what's really going on in this. Is it, this fame game of art?
It really is interesting, because nobody does seem to have the answer. And at the end of the day, there's hundreds of millions of dollars that flow in different directions based on, I guess, whether you're famous or foolish, one or the other.
Right. And who's,
in all honesty,
who's controlling that narrative?
We really don't know. And my question hasn't really changed. If you take a look at the gatekeepers back in the 60s tended to be gallery owners, and they tended to be the reviewers, the big newspapers. If you were the art reviewer of the Philadelphia Inquirer, you had a lot of say in Philadelphia. With social media today and these huge galleries, not the local corner gallery, but these huge galleries, has the whole dynamic of the art world changed dramatically. Does the art reviewer really matter? I mean, does anybody care anymore? Or is it all a game of people whispering in ears? Where, a benefactor for a museum gets approached by a gallery and says, "Hey, we have some great stuff here. We'd like you to collect it." Okay. And they said, if you buy one, we'll give you one free. Well, I've heard this. Well, why do you get one free? So you can donate that to a museum that you sit on the board of. Okay. So again, are there games? Is there market? There is, but that can't be the reason for all the art out there today. And it does ebb and flow. Mid-century abstract is popular one day and not the next.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah. It's going to be interesting for Sean and I coming into this from the kind of the outside, not being part of the art world, but being very heavily involved in the marketing world.
Right.
In the marketing world, there's proven concepts, there's formulas. I mean, certain things you don't expect to work and they work, but those are usually the outliers. Here, in the art world, it seems like everything's an outlier and there's no real way to navigate it. So as an artist, how do you take a step forward and make a name for yourself, make a living for yourself, doing something that you have a predisposition, a huge talent in, and you actually like?
Yeah.
So I think that will be interesting as well. And for me personally, it'll be interesting to understand, how has no one discovered this work yet? Or why isn't it held to the same regard as a Lynn Drexler? Is it the size of the work? Is it just the format? Is it something else? So those are the exact questions we're going to seek to answer on this podcast and this journey that we're on. And thank you so much for being the host. Hopefully we'll reconnect with you soon, maybe at a later episode, maybe do a part 2 as we find out some more information. And certainly we'll be hitting you up for intros to the museums that you've spoken to already, so we can get them on the show and dive in deeper with them as well. So thank you, Reid.
Absolutely. Be more than happy to do it, Alex. I think that all the players in this business would really like to not only contribute, but basically potentially find some answers. We're all looking for the next that next famous artwork to hang on our wall. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reid.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Famous or Forgotten podcast. We hope you found it insightful, educational, entertaining, and everything else that goes into a great podcast. We are always looking for folks to provide insights into this conversation around artists and what makes them succeed or not. If you feel like you have some insights to provide to this show, feel free to check the podcast notes below, or if you're watching on YouTube, in the show description. Our contact information is there. You can get in touch, and we'd love to start the conversation with you and allow you to provide any kind of insights that you think might be helpful. Stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next episode.